Well, hello there, watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the political commentator Adam Boulton and the Daily Mirror columnist Kevin Maguire. Welcome and lovely to see both of you. So, as ever, the front pages then. Let's kick off with The Times. It reports on families facing deportation under new government asylum rules. The Metro has also gone with Labour infighting over the proposals, quoting MPs who are calling the move shameful, cruel and draconian. The Telegraph writes about the Home Secretary defending her reforms. The Daily Mail reflects on Shabana Mahmood's strong language in the House of Commons, in which she reveals she suffers racist abuse in the streets. The Guardian says the Prime Minister is facing a major challenge to his authority following today's announcements, while the Mirror quotes Sir Keir Starmer as saying that he is determined to remain Labour's leader at the next election. The Eye reports on the opposition offering to work with the government to crack down on migration. The Express questions whether the new plans are doomed to fail, calling the move steps in the right direction. And The Sun leads with an investigation in which they uncovered how illegal migrants are given private maths lessons and access to on-call GPs. Financial Times front page reads about new government plans to crack down on the resale of concert tickets. And the Daily Star focuses on next week's budget, saying Rachel Reeves will not go ahead with a horse racing betting tax rise. So let's talk more with Adam and with Kevin. I mean, nearly every paper talking about what we saw in the Commons today and the announcement from the Home Secretary. First of all, how radical is it and how unusual that it's come from a Labour government?
Well, I think it is a departure in the debate. She was saying the sort of things that have only been heard from explicitly from parties of the right, from Reform and others. But fascinatingly, she framed it in a Labour argument that this was about society, as she said, being torn apart and therefore saying if we don't deal with this problem, we're going to get something worse. And that was her justification for making it really much, much harder for people to come to this country. And, you know, looking at the papers, not often you see a Tory minister given pride of place on the front page, and that reference to Mahmood turning the air blue is to the fact that a rather sort of sanctimonious Liberal Democrat spokesman, Max Wilkinson, got up and said, oh, well, you know, we mustn't say this is tearing society apart. And her response was, wake up every day. You know, frequently, regularly, she said, people accuse her of the P word with a swear word attached to it. And she actually said that in the House of Commons and had to have that corrected by the Speaker, or the Speaker asked for an apology. And this was the fascinating thing about her, that everyone on the other benches, whether it was Jeremy Corbyn or Danny Kruger for Reform, or the Conservatives with Kemi Badenoch, they're actually saying, we'll work with you. And she just batted that away and said, you know, I'm not interested in support for you, given what you've done. So in other words, she framed this as a very combative Labour performance. And the point about that is that if she can keep the rebellion within Labour ranks down, that would be good for the policy, but it'd also be very good for her, I think.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, anger will turn to hatred was the framing of this. And, I mean, how small will the rebellion be, and will it be significant, do you think, in Labour's ranks?
Yeah, the truth is we don't know yet, and you know, they counted in sort of 20 MPs so far. But
not many of them volunteered for a duffing up.
No, but I think it's likely to grow. No, she was incredibly punchy, you've got to say, and I think, sadly, any Briton of colour has suffered racist abuse, you know, that we very rarely would suffer. I've occasionally had people, you know, people of colour have a go at me for being white, but you know, if you're of colour, if you're, you know, Asian heritage, African heritage, Caribbean, you get it all the time. But in any issue, you can either confront it, you can change the subject, or you can concede, and she's conceded on this, which is why she's gone to the right. And yes, she's trying to frame it her way, and she was trying to kick everybody out of the park who gave any criticism, whether it was the SNP, the Conservatives, or Reform, or on her own.
Nigel Farage in her interview.
Well, on her own side, but I think it will. I think it will grow. She's trying to knock down some of the concerns, say, over confiscating valuables.
Yes,
but
exactly.
jewellery,
The jewellery tax,
which of course Denmark can do, although very rarely done, because the argument is it only actually really happens if you're bringing in 20 Rolexes or something.
I mean, what she chose to pick out was someone getting £800 a month from his family.
But
and they've got an Audi.
And
she
had
said,
an Audi.
yeah.
But the problem with her talking about that is it's a very isolated example, but then you play into myths and you make it appear as if this is rather common, which then stokes tension. So she's playing I think she's gone down a very, very dangerous path. I think parts of it are very unpalatable.
Why is it dangerous, though? I mean, and why is it unpalatable, do you think?
Right, well, unpalatable, for instance, if you just take the issue of having 20 years before you could stay. I mean, look, you could be doing an incredibly valuable job, you could be married, you could have kids, you might marry somebody from Britain. Your life is in limbo all that time? Are you really going to send people back to
Syria? The implication
Syria?
was if you were doing training or working, you could shorten that period, wasn't it?
Well, on that point,
but it could be up to 20 years.
You've got the front page of the Times and the Guardian doing the same story and saying, are you really saying that you're going to kick people out who've been here for 20 years, who may have had children going through school and all that? Now, the loophole which she's put in is these work or study visas. In other words, if you're not in receipt of benefits and you're working or studying, then you could actually get indefinite leave to remain or ultimately British citizenship earlier. But on the face of it, we've got case studies in the Times, on the television tonight, on the news bulletins, of worried families saying, "Look, we've been here for a long time."
Well, that's where this is about people in the end, and at times it was almost as if she wasn't talking about.
But it's on people on both sides, and that's
it is. But they are people,
and people arriving.
And you will find if you can dehumanise them or make them faceless, people will rise up and kick off. But you get so many deportation cases where you'll find somebody's in a local community, they go to a local church or a faith group or whatever, and then people say, "Why are you doing this to our person?" And polling shows that if you ask people what the big issues are in their area, migration isn't in the top three. If you ask them what is nationally the case, say the top three, and that's because there's so much misreporting, there are so many myths peddled, and she risks playing into that.
But see, I'm not clear whether you can make this retrospective. I would have thought that the case histories which we're getting now...
Yeah, it's new. I think it is new.
Won't necessarily be affected. And there was also one thing which she said, which is in the document as well, which is interesting. And she's saying that it might be up to charities, voluntary organisations, and obviously churches as well, to feed people into this...
To nominate people effectively,
Well, and cultivate people to get them into the system. So basically what she's saying, don't whinge about it, actually do something about it if you don't like it.
Also in her statement, 400,000 have sought asylum here in the last 4 years. Over 100,000 people now live in asylum accommodation, and over half of refugees remain on benefits 8 years after they've arrived. 8 years. 8 million quid a week on asylum hotels. For the British people, there's a kind of, you've had enough of it. You've got Trump feeding, you're not going to have your country anymore if you carry on. The Conservatives, if we look at the eye now, pledging to help the Home Secretary, will she need their votes, and will they stick with helping her despite saying she hasn't gone far enough?
Yeah, well, the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, needs the issue diffused because she's losing out to reform. No matter how far the Conservatives go, and they had that flirtation with deporting people who've been granted indefinite leave to remain. Then they backtracked on that. So you can see it's also in their interest to diffuse it because it's the big card that Reform plays as an anti-migrant party. So you can see that interest, but the temptation is a bit like dogs and lampposts. As the bill goes through. If there's a large Labour rebellion, do you really want to back Labour for it to go through, or do you want to pull the rug from under Labour so they lose?
But they are in a bit of a bind because Kemi Badenoch's whole thrust was to say, we've tried all this, it was our ideas and you voted against it. Well, if she now starts voting against things that she said that the previous government proposed, she might look a bit foolish. I should just say that there is another kind of catch-22 in this, which is that the government is saying the way out of this is not to claim benefits and to work, but an awful lot of categories of asylum seekers and immigrants aren't actually allowed to work.
Yeah.
And so, you know, whereas that is one of the big differences with the Danish system.
Yeah.
But you know,
after 6 months, you're allowed to work.
You're allowed to work.
And she was asked about that,
Yeah.
and she said no, she wouldn't allow that because it would be a pull factor. Well, if you're not going to allow people to work, you're going to then have to support them. Otherwise, you're going to be throwing them on the streets, and then people will complain about people being on the streets.
Let's just see the Daily Mail, you know, that racist abuse that means I know this system's broken. In terms of any leadership challenge, very quickly, has she helped herself, and will there be a challenge?
I think she has helped herself with certain parts of the Labour Party, and I do think increasingly there will be a challenge. And I know, you know, the Daily Mirror write a column for it.
Yes.
Ron being associate editor, the headline Starmer says, "I'll lead Labour at the election." Of course, he has to say that. I don't believe he wants to do that, but I think that's less likely now. I think the mood in Westminster has changed. I was struck by it today. Before her statement, a number of MPs just say voters have made up their mind about Starmer and they don't like him. Fairly or unfairly, he's now a drag on Labour.
Also, I have to say, if you're a Prime Minister, you've been there for just over a year and you're giving interviews saying, I'm going to lead the party into the next election, it's not a good place to be in.
That's
true. It shouldn't be a story.
OK, both of you stay there. Plenty more still to discuss in the next part of our programme, including touts are out. That's the FT. Back in a moment.
Eastern Libya is the new doorway to Europe for people being smuggled from Africa and Asia.
We are close to Greece. You can see it.
We've obtained unprecedented access to the authorities.
Do you feel you're just scratching the surface?
We've been on the raids, out with the Coast Guard,
That's so desperate.
and inside the detention centres
How did you cope with that?
to find what's pushing people to Europe and what's driving the authorities here to stop them.
Mayhem in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling?
I am angry.
It is an anti-woman agenda.
Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Anybody else?
Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from the UK?
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Do you think Kamala is brat?
Kamala's brat.
Are you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down. As them say, our God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. Sky News, get the full story first. Free wherever you get your news. Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
I'm Stephen Murphy and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach.
This could be not only a record-breaking storm,
but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me once again, Adam Boulton and Kevin Maguire. Welcome back to both of you. Just checking where we're going. Hold on a second. We are going to go to the front page of the Financial Times, which is the ban on the resale of tickets, which is a crackdown on industrial-scale touts. Is it the bots that are doing the calls?
Well, it's bots and also individuals, because now so many people buy tickets for gigs with no intention of going, then sell them on Viagogo and StubHub. Labour promised in opposition it would end this. The resale will now have to be at face value. There was a suggestion it could be up to 30% on top. I wonder what will happen about fees, management fees around it, but...
I mean, there's been a big campaign on this with big stars. You may remember last week on the front page of The Star, I think they had Dua Lipa and Chris Martin and someone from Radiohead whose name escapes me.
Not Tom York, no.
Campaigning against this. and what's interesting about this is that they can... Kevin was explaining this to me. You can now do it because most ticket sales are done online.
And they're live tickets on your phone, they regenerate, so you can't transfer them easily.
And they can see, one of the things they're doing is excluding people who've sold more than 100 tickets, i.e. people who are not in it business personally. And the only way where it will work is if you don't want your ticket, you'll have to sell it back to
the provider.
Yeah.
But of course, it's one of the reasons sometimes groups of performers put up the price of tickets, because they know if you sell them really cheaply, they'll be bought by bots, organised touts, but also individuals who'll then sell them at a big profit. So the money doesn't go to the artist, it goes to whoever's making that profit, that middle person.
So this is fixing the market, in other words.
It is. Well, there'll be free marketeers who say it should be allowed to go ahead. It's just free market tickets. They'll find their own value. But personally, I prefer the idea they go back to the company selling them in the first place, and then they can be resold.
So it's all gone tech. It's not like the old days where you had the bloke standing out saying, buy or sell.
I'm sure they'll still be there, won't they? Maybe not, I don't know.
No, they can't be.
No, they can't be.
But some of them are with burner phones, and you have the ticket on the phone.
Golly. FT also, Sheikh Hasina, former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, in exile in India, as we know, sentenced to death. I mean, this is, extraordinary when the news came out.
That's right. After 1,400 were killed in demonstrations against her, eventually toppled her. She's now in India. She is, of course, the aunt of Chilub Sadiq, the Labour MP in North London, who had to resign as a minister over separate allegations that she was somehow embroiled, which she absolutely denied, in corruption in Bangladesh.
And yet, it should also be said she's the daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who was the founder of Bangladesh, broke away from Pakistan. There used to be East and West Pakistan. And he, of course, was viewed very positively, but was eventually assassinated in an uprising. So the family have traditionally been one of the powerful political families. But she's in India. They've also had strong ties to India going back, into the empire. And I have to say, there's a certain sort of grotesquerie about this. I mean, the same judge sentenced her to life sentences and the death penalty. Well, that doesn't really make much sense to me. But also, she is a woman in her, I think, the late 70s. And, should you really be threatening to execute people
anywhere?
Adam, Kevin.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.